Hello there once again and welcome to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers. Glad you're with us. We're here every week. We meet interesting people and deal with some topical issues, and we have a guest today in that I know we're very excited to hear from.
We are. We are excited to have Mike Holder on, the athletic director at Oklahoma State University, who's just doing a fantastic job up there. There's a lot has gone on, a lot is going on, and there's a lot more to go on. Yeah. And under his leadership, we're really thrilled he'd come to Oklahoma City and do a show with us, and I think you'll like what he has to say.
Well, it's a new day on that campus, and Mike Holder's part of it.
Indeed.
We'll have more on The Verdict right after this.
America has been here before, faced with daunting challenges, and we've always found the courage to lead. Foreign oil, greenhouse gases, we have the power to do something about them with American natural gas. Chesapeake is forging ahead, converting our fleets to clean-burning natural gas vehicles, encouraging others to do the same. Welcome to America. Chesapeake, America's champion of natural gas.
Wilsey, Meyer, Eatman, Tate. We're accountants. We do taxes, business valuations, estate planning, and consulting. And we're right here in Oklahoma, working with the owners of small and medium-sized businesses. Steve Wilsey and Stuart Meyer have the resources and the experience. Wilsey, Meyer, Eatman, Tate in Oklahoma City and Tulsa.
There's no waiting at the St. Anthony ER.
No waiting.
Announcing the end of ER waiting at St. Anthony Hospital. Go to saintsok.com and reserve your time online.
Why didn't we think of that?
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers, and Kent's going to introduce today's guest.
Today we're thrilled to have Mike Holder, the athletic director at Oklahoma State University. He's actually the vice president for athletic programs and director of intercollegiate athletics. A nice long title, but he's the AD to us. He grew up in Ardmore, did his undergraduate and MBA work at Oklahoma State University, and while he was there, he was an All-American golfer himself. For 32 years, he was head coach for the OSU golf program with really spectacular success. I'm going to take just a little bit longer than normal because there's a lot to say. He won his teams won 8 national championships. He had 110 All-American golfers, and he had a lot of golfers go through his program, and they turned out not simply to be good golfers, but outstanding citizens in the community as well. That was a big part of what their program stressed and still does today. As athletic director, his success has remained the same. I mean, his facility upgrades are known widely around the state as being nothing short of astounding. His season ticket sales are up. The football program has done better than most any OSU football program ever. And things are just on the upswing, and we called Mike and said, would you please come down and do our show? And he was very gracious to say he would. And we sure thank you for joining us.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. I appreciate the invitation.
Let's, I know we want to spend most of the show talking about what's going on currently, but talk about those early days of you being at Oklahoma State University. You were named head coach of the golf team at a very young age.
I think I was 22 or 23 years old, I think.
Yeah.
If I didn't have
How
any
did that happen? I mean,
well, I'll make a long story short. There were 3 of us that were finally interviewed for the job, and I only applied because Laban Harris Sr., who was the only golf coach we had had and who had coached me, encouraged me to do so. And I thought it was kind of strange that he would think that I could be a golf coach. I never thought about being one. I just wanted to play. And I was in graduate school at the time and thought when I finished graduate school I'd play the PGA Tour. But he talked me into applying, and it got down to 3 of us, and they offered me the job. And I was patting myself on the back because the 2 gentlemen that also were there, Bobby Getz and Bob Ellis, were older, had a family, all had good jobs, very established. And I thought, gee, for a 23-year-old to come out on top and be offered the job, that's pretty good. And then they told me what they were paying, and I realized $6,500, you couldn't raise a family on that, so I was the only candidate. So I didn't realize what I was getting into when I took that job, but I quickly became apparent that I'd taken on more than I'd realized, and there was a lot of responsibility that went along with it because of the tradition started by Laban Harris and the responsibility to carry that on. And I thought about doing it for a short period of time, and that turned into 32 years, 32 of the best years of my life.
Mm-hmm. And then along the way, you helped design and help raise the money to build Karsten Creek, one of the premier golf courses in the United States, and certainly one of just a handful with a university perspective.
Yeah, you know, it's kind of funny. I decided to do that the first 2 months I was on the job. I don't know why. I never thinking I'm going to be there a year and I'm going to build a golf course. But, you know, it was kind of an inspiration that didn't take very long to come to fruition, only about 20 years. And you could talk a long time about what happened and how we finally got that golf course from the dream stage to the planning stage to the actual reality of a golf course that you go out there and play.
Well, you've now changed jobs. You've given up the golf program and taken on the bigger job of what I'll just call athletic director. How hard was it to make that switch after that many very successful years to take on a different kind of significant responsibility?
Well, it was very difficult because I loved doing what I was doing, and over the course of that 32 years, I had assembled a program that was probably, I wouldn't say, I'm not trying to brag, but we had everything. You had a great facility, you had a budget, unlimited budget, you had a tradition to recruit to, and if you were willing to continue to work hard, I don't think there was any question that you'd have a chance to win the national championship every year. And to step back and go take on a job where it was kind of the polar opposite of that, where resources are a huge problem and facilities are a huge problem for our athletic department, and not every sport had the same opportunity as the golf program. Mm-hmm. So to leave kind of a situation of plenty to a situation of very little, tough to do. And my wife loved me being golf coach because she liked going to Hawaii and Puerto Rico and all the exotic places, and it was a rhythm to it. She understood it when the recruiting happened, and a lot of travel for me, and she didn't want to give that up. But she's a team player. And she saw the opportunity to maybe make a difference at a place we both love, so that's why she signed on kind of reluctantly.
Yeah, well, one of the issues you face in the facilities is the competing universities in the Big 12 South. I mean, you look at what the University of Texas, for instance, has been able to accumulate, and then for fans to assume that any school can compete on an equal basis with the facilities that you inherited was really an unequal playing field.
Absolutely. You hit the nail on the head, Mick. You know, everyone expects you, no matter what the obstacles are, the lack of facility, the lack of funding, all the negatives, when you kick it off on Saturday afternoon, they expect you to win. They don't care who the opponent is. And reality kind of flies out the window. So the challenge is to change that dynamic and actually give your coaches and your athletes, primarily your coaches, because they're the ones that will recruit the athletes, and if you have the athletes, you have a chance to win, but to really give them the resources, and that takes a commitment. And we had never really been committed to football before. We paid lip service to football. And I think we just accepted the fact that we were going to play second fiddle to the University of Oklahoma in the state of Oklahoma. And that may continue, but it's not going to be because we aren't committed. We are committed now. And there's a lot of reasons for that, and there's a lot of tangible evidence of our commitment. And I think that slowly over time we'll change that dynamic. We have a huge amount of respect for the University of Oklahoma and the University of Texas for what they've been able to accomplish in football and overall athletics. But I think it's a huge advantage for us to be in the same state with University of Oklahoma and be able to draft off their football program. That shows that you can be the best that there is in college athletics in the state of Oklahoma. And then I would like to think they return the favor to us in wrestling or in golf and some of the other sports. So we're brothers in the same state. We have a lot of respect for OU and David Boren and Joe Castiglione. We want to compete hard with them, but when the competition is over with, we're going to work together towards what I think is a better Oklahoma, because that's what we're all in the business for.
Have facilities always been important to recruits, or is this a relatively new phenomenon? When you were recruiting in the 70s and 80s, before you had Karsten Creek as the golf coach to recruit to, what were kids looking for then?
Well, they were looking for the same things, primarily success. And the facility challenge wasn't there because really no one had very much. There wasn't the same emphasis and the amount of money being spent on college athletics across the board. But that dynamic's changed.
When did it change and who changed it? Can you trace that back?
Oh gosh, great question. I don't know. I'd like to think in golf that we had a little bit to do with that. But as far as maybe let's look at football, because that's kind of at the forefront of everybody's mind. I'd say, who's the first one? I don't know if you could point to any one school, but when Texas realized that they had a problem back, I guess it was probably in the 90s, they realized that they had a problem in football and they'd fallen behind in facilities and started challenging their fans and supporters to step up and make a difference. And what's happened since then to their football stadium and overall facilities, I think that spurred a lot of other people to do the same, and especially in our area. But you could probably point to the same thing, one particular school in the SEC, I'm not sure who that was. You could look at the Pac-10, and I think Oregon's setting the bar out there for what facilities can do for your football program, because they've gone from a perennial kind of mediocre program to competing for the national championship, and a lot of that's because of Phil Knight and the difference he's made in facilities there. And youngsters are impressionable. That's just the world we live in today. It's fast-paced, a lot better means of communication, a lot more people know a lot more about what the competition is doing, and the athlete that you're recruiting knows a lot more about what's out there and what's available. And if you don't meet that challenge, or you don't have something equal to offer, you're going to lose out. And it's all about recruiting talent. I don't care if you're in higher education or you're in athletics or you're a businessman in the state of Oklahoma. It's all about getting the best talent on your team or in your company and trying to compete.
Mike Holder is the athletic director at Oklahoma State University. More with Mike after this.
The thing that has made the most sense for me is realizing that I am still an educator, and that is what I do at the Chickasaw Nation. I'm Dr. Amanda Cobb-Greetham. I'm a historian, and I'm Chickasaw. The Chickasaw Cultural Center is amazing. It is a very, very special place devoted to the sharing and to the celebration of Chickasaw history and culture. State-of-the-art technology, exhibits that are not like anything I've ever seen. The Spirit Forest is incredible, and you feel as if you have actually just walked into a forest with huge trees all around you. It's timeless, and yet it's sort of also representative of our time depth, to really just sort of reach through time and touch the past. By the end of the exhibits, you really have a sense of Chickasaw cultural and political resurgence and the extent to which we are a healthy, dynamic, and vital tribe today. Chickasaws have always been an inclusive people. This is something for the whole community and for the state of Oklahoma.
In 25 years, world energy demand will grow by 44%, with oil and natural gas largely meeting the need.
The question is, will America's demand be met by American resources?
Oklahoma says yes. We're developing the largest oil and natural gas discoveries America has seen in 40 years.
It's creating jobs and millions in tax revenue for schools, roads, and hospitals.
Oklahoma's oil and natural gas industry, advancing our state, empowering our nation.
When you have something important to communicate, it becomes clear that there's a lot of competition for your audience's attention. So how can your message stand out and actually resonate with your audience? Legal Graphics has the answers. The team at Legal Graphics will work with you to plan, design, and even test your presentation to ensure your message will be heard and remembered. Call Legal Graphics today to schedule an appointment. The readiness is all.
We're back on The Verdict, visiting with Oklahoma State Athletic Director Mike Holder.
Mike, in getting ready for this show, I did a little bit of independent research and determined one thing that seems to be undisputed, that you not only put out great golfers, you put out a lot of great citizens, whether they were All-Americans or not, from your golf program. How did you weave in being a good citizen as well as being a good golfer into your teaching as a coach?
Well, I didn't really know any other way to do it because of the mentor I had in Laban Harris Sr. I think he was one of the great coaches of all time in any sport. He made a huge difference in my life, and I just tried to carry on what I learned from him. And you find out real fast that success on the field is a byproduct of doing other things that aren't real obvious to most people. In other words, if you have a good work ethic, I believe it's real important to be humble. I think it's important to be a good sport. I think it's important to be a good teammate. I think it's important to have good morals and values. And it's also very important as an athlete for you to focus on academics, because that's why you're there at the university. And I always made it a high priority to go to class, to make good grades, not just get by. Challenge yourself to find out how good a student you can be, because golf's not always going to be fun. You play it today because you love it, but if you go on and play it as a profession, which everyone dreamed of doing, if you are so fortunate, there are going to be days when it's no fun, that it's like any job. And that discipline that you learned, forcing yourself to maybe study late at night when you're tired, or be in a class when you'd rather be someplace else, that carries over to the athletic field. So you can't separate the two. Excellence off the field, excellence on the playing field or the golf course. And I think they're just part and parcel, and it's part of your fabric as a person, as a human being. And if you do all those things, and I never talked about winning. Winning is a byproduct. It just happens. So you get the right number of kids together that have those kind of values and care about what they're doing and are committed and work hard, it's inevitable you're going to be successful.
Your job description, in a sense, sounds overwhelming. So many different sports for the men and the women, making sure that their budgets are intact, that the student athletes conduct themselves appropriately, and at the same time, you kind of have to be at some of these events from time to time. I can't imagine the restraints on your time. How do you handle the time restraints of the job?
Well, I really don't have any, because if I were retired, I'd probably be doing most of the same thing. You know, I've got the dream job for most people. They said, "Oh, I got to go to a basketball game tonight." Really? How lucky are you? But yeah, there's the biggest thing I think is focusing on what's important for me, and the absolute most important thing I have are the coaches, number one, because they bring you those athletes. But our number one resource at the university are students and student athletes. And so every day I get up in the morning and I try to make a difference for our athletes, to give them a chance to realize their dreams, to have their dreams come true, give them every resource imaginable to help them become the absolute best that they can be. And if you keep that at the forefront, you're probably going to make pretty good decisions.
We've just seen and heard a lot about the change in the Big 12, the loss of Nebraska and Colorado. What effect do you think that change will have on athletics at Oklahoma State University?
Well, I hated to see Colorado and Nebraska leave because of the long-standing tradition of association with, I guess it was the Big Six and the Big Eight, yeah, and then the Big 12. And a lot of that in football, so many rivalries, so many great games played. So you hate to see them leave. But on the other hand, I think the world of who's left. And when you've still got Texas and Oklahoma and Missouri and all the rest of us in there, I think that has a lot to offer. I think the real key piece of the puzzle is to prove that, or make a statement somehow to the general public and the media that we're for real and we're here for the long term as the Big 12 Conference with 10 members. Mm-hmm. And I think key to that's going to be the new negotiations for the new television contract. That's up for renewal, the cable portion of that with Fox. There's preliminary talks going on right now. how that goes, the amount of money generated, the amount of exposure that we're going to get as a league will go a long way, I think, to determining how stable our league is and also change that public perception. And I'm very optimistic about what might happen.
Well, the basic math is that you would divide it up by 10 ways, I guess, instead of 12, but there are some markets that might be less appealing. And so is that what you're trying to gauge?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And keeping the Texas schools, keeps those 3 large Texas markets down there. Nebraska and Colorado leave. I'm assuming there's reaction to the Denver market and the Omaha market and perhaps the Chicago market. I'm not pretending to know, but how you think the math's going to come out okay if when you start putting it out?
I think it'll be real easy to determine, Mick, because the marketplace is going to tell you how valuable this conference is and what the perception they believe is going to be going forward and how attractive those matchups are going to be. So the dollar amount is going to be very symbolic about how valuable the conference is and how bright the future is.
Well, the coverage the conference gets is nearly unmatched. I mean, the national television that the basketball teams and the football teams get, I mean, it seems unparalleled in national audiences frequently. And so that's going to be important going forward. Losing these 2 teams, will they affect that national coverage?
Well, no question to a certain extent, but I think what's left is very, very attractive, and we're in the central time zone. We're in the middle of the United States. We've got some proud tradition in our programs, and I think we've got some other schools that are going to step up and elevate the level of competitiveness in their program. So I'm optimistic, but I think that we'll have something substantial to hang our hat on if we do well in this current television negotiation. So it's key, I think, to the future.
I want to harken back to something we mentioned in the first segment, and that's Karsten Creek. I've never seen it. I've heard wonderful things about it from those who have. Can you tell our viewers a little bit about it? Some of its unique features, keeping in mind it's in Stillwater, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And as I understand it, a beautiful facility.
Yeah, you would when you go there, you wouldn't think you're in Oklahoma. And we all know there's some beautiful parts of Oklahoma, but the general public away from our state thinks of western Oklahoma when you think of our state. But we have a lot of trees, blackjack trees, rolling terrain. We've got a nice lake, 100-acre lake on the property, a lot of wildlife out there because of the setting. But what really sets it apart is its mission is very focused. It's there for one reason and one reason only, and that's to allow our 2 teams, men and women, to try to win the national championship and develop great players for the future. That's why it was built. That's what it's there for every day. Every decision that's made out there is made with that focus. And I think that sets it apart from any other facility, whether it's in college athletics or in the general public or private facility anywhere in the United States of America.
Well, but fundamental of that was getting a business model that worked, that allows you to not be so profit motivated or trying to sell green fees or golf gloves or whatever else.
Well, you're right, Mick, because that golf course doesn't belong in Stillwater, Oklahoma. You can't. The community, Payne County, can't support that. So we had to build it debt-free, which we did. We built an endowment so that we can take care of the long-term maintenance of it. And hopefully, it's a tough time right now for golf in general in our state. It's a sport that's contracting instead of expanding. And you're seeing a lot of golf courses disappearing. So we just hope to stay out there, survive, flourish, and continue to serve our mission, which is for the golf teams.
Mike, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks so much.
All right.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Mike Holder, Athletic Director at Oklahoma State University. Kent and I'll have a final word right after this.
All children deserve a life of hope and love, but sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, each child deserves all the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. For more information, call 23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
The good life comes naturally to Tulsa, where nature's beauty is matched with an eye for aesthetics. A legacy of neighborhoods graced with lawns and landscaping and handsome homes. A place that seems to have patented an ideal lifestyle. Bank First is loyal to the quality of life Tulsa assures its citizens. to the priority placed on education, culture, and growth. Loyal to builders who transform raw land into residential charm. Developers who see opportunity and add vitality to Tulsa's economy. Bank First serves both enterprise and private lives that need a loyal partner. It's how we help nurture this city's very good life. Bank First. Loyal to Oklahoma. Loyal to you.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of The Verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information. And for almost 30 years, Oklahoma political, government, and business leaders have turned to the McCarville Report for accurate, reliable, inside information. Visit the McCarville Report online.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. We are wrapping up the show in which we visited with Oklahoma State Athletic Director Mike Holder. What a wealth of information, and how fortunate the state of Oklahoma is to have him representing one of our large universities.
Yes, with the spectacular successes. We talked about it in 32 years of being a head golf coach and then taking over the program entirely at Oklahoma State University. I predict a similar success, and he's already started. He's been there since 2005, believe it or not, but he's already making terrific headway.
Well, maybe as good athletic director as he was a golf coach, and as a golf coach, the number you came up with, it startled me so much I had to sit and think about it. He had 110 All-Americans. Remember, there's only 5 players on a team any one year. To have 110 All-Americans is almost mathematically impossible, but it's a very strong testament to his commitment to Oklahoma State University. He has donated his life to the betterment of that school.
Well, and he has donated he and his wife together have donated substantial sums to the university general programs.
He's the ultimate coach to hire at age 23. They knew what they were doing. We got a couple of websites we want to pass along to you. You can get more information about Mike and his program in Stillwater at okstate.com. That's okstate.com. And you can go on our website and tell us about a guest or a show that you'd like to see discussed right here on The Verdict. That website is theverdict.tv. That's theverdict.tv.
And what are we doing next week?
Next week, we're going to talk about grocery stores and should they have the ability in Oklahoma to sell strong beer and wine. And so stay tuned for that show. For Kent Myers, I'm Mick Cornett. We'll see you next week on The Verdict.
The preceding program was produced exclusively for the Cox Channel.